so that everyone can get notifications. And I also know that the way me and technology runs sometime, it often likes to shut off on me randomly. So I'm starting just a couple seconds early so that I can give people time to come on in. Yep, we are live. We are live and we are live. Perfect. So, welcome everybody. We are live for tonight's Sex, Love, and Marriage. I am just going to share this video on my page. Well, I think it's in my groups. So, welcome. Just so everyone knows, before we get into the juicy part of tonight, I am streaming live on all of my platforms. So you are hearing me on Clubhouse, you are seeing me on Instagram, you are seeing me on YouTube, and you are seeing me on Facebook. All of those platforms, you can find me by searching at Coach K, COACHKAY101. So if one of the platforms seem to be lagging, doesn't have good quality, Instagram is always going to be the best quality of them all. Don't know why, but it seems to be the one that works the best. Sex, Love, and Marriage is a weekly discussion that I have on Tuesday nights at 9 p.m. Eastern Standard Time about a variety of topics, everything in the realm of sex, love, and marriage. Before we get started, I also want to just introduce myself because I do horrible at that. So, welcome all that are joining me tonight for Sex, Love, and Marriage. I am Konya Ford, but you can call me Coach K. I am your favorite life coach and certified clinical sexologist. And I am here to bring you topics that get conversations started. I welcome everyone who is listening now or will listen later to please share your thoughts. Feel free to be an interactive part of this discussion because if you are here every week, you know that I will say it in a heartbeat. I am not here to be right. I am here to be heard and get the conversations started. So, tonight's topic on sex, love, and marriage is overcoming single parent syndrome. And before I get too deep into that, I want to be very clear. I am not a licensed therapist. I am not a licensed anything. I am a certified coach, life coach, certified sexologist. So when I say syndrome, it is not me diagnosing anyone. It is me speaking on a topic that I know exists because, hey, guess what? I lived through it. And so I want to talk about that. And especially as it relates to getting into a relationship. So let's talk about. Oh, almost forgot. Don't forget, June 1, tomorrow, is the official launch of Date Night RBA. Yay! Go over to datenightrba.net to learn all about it. It is the very first and only dating social club for couples in the Richmond, Virginia area. So I just want to make sure that I say that. If you leave comments on Facebook, sometimes I'm not able to see them right away. I'm not sure why. So if I do not see them, my apologies, but I'm not ignoring you. I will, when we catch the replay, make sure that I go back to answer or speak to those. So, overcoming a single parent syndrome. When you typically, most people, when they have children, unless this is truly your plan. Hey, my boo just joined S.4EIE on Instagram. Unless it is your true life plan to be a single parent. But for the most part, a lot of us who start out having children and creating families, we don't necessarily say, hey, I think I want to have this child and do it all by myself. A lot of times there are circumstances that surround this family creation that does not allow for both parties to stay actively involved in one household as a family unit. Now, even when I speak on this single parent syndrome and overcoming it, it also speaks to people who co-parent. So I'm covering this whole umbrella, not in depth, but just in general. And so, because it wasn't the plan to be a single parent, you go into this mode of survival. You have this new child in your life that it is your responsibility to take care of and to protect. And so you go into that mode, laser focus, to ensure that you do the best job possible, because your child or children depend on what it is that you're doing and how you produce. And so naturally, you want to do it the best. So, with that, you create how it's going to be done. You set parameters, you set rules, you create narratives and all kinds of other things. So, whatever you feel like is necessary for the betterment of this child is what you do. It then becomes a habit, because if you've ever been a single parent, especially when they're little, when you have little ones, creating a routine is probably going to be your best friend, because otherwise you'll end up frantic, you'll end up frustrated. And we usually, unfortunately, we take it out on the child when we're frustrated with the lack of us creating a routine as the adult for the family unit that we have now created. That frustration is also sprinkled in a little bit by the fact that the other party that helped produce this child is no longer around. And so, in order to avoid that frustration and that kind of chaos, we create these habits and routines. And so, it takes, up to what, at least 24 to and upwards to sometimes 45 or more times of doing something on a regular basis to create a true habit. So, in a matter of 365 days, so I'm just talking about a year of a child's life. So, even 3 months of a child's life, that's 90 days. You've created a routine and habit. So, now let's fast forward to, you've created this habit and now you're out and about. You may not be even in the headspace of, let me welcome somebody into our lives, because I need a man or I need a woman to be a part of our unit. But let's just say it happens. Someone comes into your life who you feel could be with you on a long-term basis. Well, your mindset is already been in single parent mode. And so that's what you live. You're still living in this place of, I have to care for and provide for my child and myself as a unit, us as a unit. And so bringing another party into this, it's not necessarily a wrench, but it's a change. And for some people, change is not easy. And for a child, change can be extremely difficult, especially depending on the age and the dynamic of how this person is introduced and what really changes in their life. So there's a lot of factors to that. So I'm going to just read off from a single parent, this article that I saw, of just 9 things that people that have single parent syndrome may display. So, number one was always trying to have the upper hand on everything. And while that does sound like a huge negative to someone outside looking in, when you think about a single parent, and when I say parent, I'm talking about both men and women, because this is not a single mother thing, this is not a single father thing, this is a single parent thing. So always trying to have the upper hand on everything comes from that habit of protecting the child, creating a routine so the child it's easily maneuvers through life, because they don't have the another person right then and there to depend on. So always trying to stay in that control mode of things, you create that habit. Number two is incapable of adjusting or sharing with others. When you get into that place where everything is it's just me and my child, we do this thing. I cook dinner for us. When we go out to a skate party, I am doing this for my child and me. When they cry at night, I go in there and I check on them. And so it's more difficult to share that responsibility or those good times or those, sorrow times that you may need support. It's hard to share that with others. Number three is conceited, aloof, or indifferent to others. While those words are very concrete, I don't always feel as though they are maliciously put forth and out into others. What I can say is that if you are around someone or you meet someone, or maybe you're in a mom group and you're getting to know someone, if you do notice these traits in a very respectful way, I feel as though being able to communicate to that person, because they may not be aware that that is the attitude and aura that they're giving off, because it's just been them and this child this entire time, this child that they're caring for and protecting throughout this however long process. And it's just been them, and that's been their job. And so if you offer advice or you say something and they seem just argumentative or just indifferent about everything, it's okay to politely and respectfully mention, hey, it seems like this. And that's if you are in a comfortable enough space where you're able to have that conversation, because otherwise it's just going to become confrontational, and that's not what we want. Number four is tends to exert dominance over everyone else. Again, very natural when you are the sole provider and caretaker of your child. Anyone that comes into your life after you've created this dominant routine with the child, that's what you are going to display with that other person, because that is what you're naturally used to at this point. You're still in that single parent mindset. Number five is you find it difficult to socialize and make friends. So if you are someone who, and I will tell you, because I lived as a single parent for about 2 years before I met my husband, it can be extremely difficult to socialize and make friends, because when you're in that mode of caring for and protecting your child, other people just don't seem to matter, honestly. And that's just being very frank and honest. You're not really looking to be around people and make a bunch of friends, because at the end of it all and at the end of the night, you have to come back home and still be the sole caretaker and provider for this child. And so adding more people to this routine that you finally got together doesn't always mix. Not necessarily you trying to do it just to be mean or nasty, but that's just what it is. So number six is prefer to be alone and not bothered by others. I will tell you, it became so easy for me to go out on the weekends, and then when I got home, just be with me and my girls. It was like super easy. Even to this day, just I could sit alone and just be fine, because within that time, I was able to just learn me and be with me. So it does get easy, and you don't even sometimes realize it, that you have been sitting for 4 hours by yourself. You haven't reached out to maybe your mom or a cousin. You haven't reached out to anybody. But you're content. You just get used to it, because it's just been you and that child. And if the child doesn't call you for anything, or they didn't need you for anything, you're just like, oh, okay, well, it's just me. Number seven is harshly reacts to even constructive criticism. This one I think as a single parent, you can become so critical of yourself for number one, being a single parent, and number two, and trying to make sure that you're doing the right thing for your child or children, that even someone who's trying to tell you something that could be helpful to you, you could take it as they're criticizing your parenting style. Because as a single parent, you're living your entire being and life just parenting. You have you've diminished the human adult person and you just become a parent. And so when someone that you may feel is criticizing you, which they may not be at all, they may be trying to offer, like I talked about earlier about the conceitedness, aloofness, and indifference, they may be trying to say something to you to just make you aware. You may automatically feel as, okay, you're criticizing my parenting skills. I'm doing the best I can, and you just take it a different way. Number 8 is resourceful and don't depend on others. Super easy. Now, when it comes to getting into a relationship, this can be one of those things that really draws a huge wedge between you and your new partner, especially if it's someone who you're marrying. Being just now, I always will say, marriage is two individual people that come together to form a union. So you should not lose your individuality. Excuse me. But when you become to the point where you just have no dependence whatsoever for your new mate and your new partner, it can make that partner feel rejected. And you may not even realize that it's happening because you're so used to having to figure it out. As a single parent, you don't have time to think things through. Well, if I don't pay this, then I can do this. What if I move this here? You really have to think on your toes and you have to figure it out because why? You in that time are the sole caregiver and protector for that child. And you would do anything to protect the child. And so your resourcefulness gets increased. And thus you say, hey, nobody wants to babysit for me. That's fine. I'll figure it out. I'll just do what I have to do. And number 9 is more wise and aware about the ways of life than their peers. And that is because, again, you've had to figure a lot of things out. And so you've had to see things through. You've had to fumble a whole lot through things. You had to just kind of look past the surface of a lot of people and a lot of things because you are the sole caregiver and provider and protector of your child. And in the interim of protecting and providing for that child, you're doing it for yourself without even realizing. You're weeding out things and people who don't serve you well. You're seeing situations for what they are because raising a kid by yourself, it's everything is usually pretty black and white. You don't have time for the gray area. You really don't. If anything is great, you kind of chuck it out like let's keep going. What can I get that's black and white? And so when I wrote this post earlier, I said I would tell you just a little bit about me and the reason why I wanted to bring this up and how I know that staying in that single parent mindset could really keep you in a single parent life. And if that's your choice, I say go for it. So please hear me when I say, because everybody's end game is not to be married or in a relationship. So if that is your goal to remain a single parent, do it and do it well. Be aware of those different things that I talked about as far as even just, having friendships with other people, because this doesn't just affect your romantic relationships. This affects all relationships, whether it is work, whether it is friendship, companionship, all of that. It affects it all. So I was a single parent for 2 years before I met my husband. It was just me and my 2 girls. I was 20, because literally my daughter was born 2 days after my 20th birthday. So I had 2 girls. I was 20 years old and they were both under the age of 2. And so just with the one, because they're about, I think they're 18 months apart, I was in super protective single parent mode. It was all about how can I make sure that I protect and provide for my girls, period. What I did know is in that space, I had to also make sure that I was good, because if I wasn't any good, then they wouldn't be. So a lot of things around me changed. My world became just this really close knit. It was already pretty small. I'm true to life Gemini, so I can sit and talk to myself all day long. So it was already pretty tight. And so when those girls came about, it just got tighter. I didn't have a lot of people around me. Many people didn't even know where I lived. I stayed in contact. I made with my family, of course. And when I met my husband, that was a transition from now trusting another person who he immediately from day one, those girls were his. When you're able to get into a space where someone makes you feel comfortable, even in especially in that single parent mode, you're still going to have your guard up, and that's okay. My husband didn't even babysit the girls for a long time because I was still in that mode of protector, provider. There were times where I had to catch myself with him because I was always just in go mode. Trash had to be taken out, you just go take the trash out. Dishes had to be washed, you just wash the dishes. Food had to be cooked, you just cook the food. You need money for whatever, you just get several jobs. You just work, 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 work. And not thinking, okay, I'm building this relationship with someone who wants to be a part of our life. So how do you overcome that single parent syndrome? The first thing is you recognize that you're even in that mode. You start to take the criticism, the constructive criticism and the feedback that you get currently, and think about some of the things that you may have been told in the past, and you start to let that sink in, and you take it with a grain of salt, right? You pick out the pieces that apply, and everything else you let it fly. Because the reality is, even with some of the things that may have hurt your feelings at the time, maybe a year ago, when you can sit with it and let it marinate just for a little while, maybe it makes sense now. Maybe it is something that you can utilize that can help you in current day with what you have happening now. And so overcoming that single parent syndrome comes with trust of yourself and of others, transparency. This is a huge. Transparency and trust are two different things. I want you to hear me. Transparency with yourself and with others. Recognizing and actioning how to ask for help. It is okay in the beginning if you have your plan B already ready to go, because the last thing you want to do, and I want everyone to hear me, whoever gets with a single parent, if you ever get into a relationship with a single parent, I want you to hear me and hear me good. The first time that you break trust could possibly be the last time that you have trust. Because to overcome single parent syndrome, trust and transparency is major. They're not just trusting you with themselves, they're also trusting you with their children. Even if it's direct or indirect, they're still trusting you in that space where they have built this nest of protection and providership for their child or children. And if you break trust, that may be the last time that you will have trust. And this is what I mean by trust. If you say you're going to be somewhere and you're going to show up and you don't, that breaks trust. If you say that you're going to pick up groceries and you don't, that breaks trust. If you say, when I get home, I'm going to run your bathwater and you don't, that breaks trust. So infidelity is not the only trust breaker when it comes to helping a single parent come out of that single parent mode, but all things of trust. All things of trust matter. And the reason why all things of trust matter is because this parent has built a full life of trust for that child. They have created an entire world where this child does not have to worry about things. They don't have to worry about when the meal is going to be cooked or who's going to buy their tennis shoes or if they get the permission slip signed in time. They don't have to worry about those things. But when someone comes into the picture and they're not able to uphold what is being done, then that is where trust can be broken. And for those on Clubhouse, you probably caught the first half of this because we're coming up on 5 minutes before we close out, but that connection did go down. So my apologies that you're catching just the tail end. So make sure you go back and catch the first 25 minutes because that is the recording that's right before this. For everyone else that's still here on Facebook, Instagram, as well as YouTube, we are 4 minutes out from 9:30. As you know, I don't like to keep you guys too long because it is at night. So if you've missed Overcoming Single Parent Syndrome, I encourage you to go back and catch the replay. I also ask that you let me know what you think. Share your story with me as well. Share your story with us because what you're able to share, there's a single parent out there that may be able to use this to help them in their current relationship. There's also someone out there that is maybe thinking about or about to get into a relationship with a single parent that may need to understand what that dynamic looks like. Why does this person react this way? Why do they feel like I'm not capable of babysitting their children? Well, the reality is you have to build that trust. Trust and transparency are going to be huge. Honesty, because trust, transparency, and honesty are 3 different things. I don't want you to feel like, well, I'm trustworthy, so I'm honest. Not necessarily. Just because I can trust you to pick me up on time does not mean that you're honest enough not to lie to me about stealing a quarter out of my out of my change purse or whatever. So I want you to understand that there are differences when it comes to building a relationship with and working with someone that needs to overcome that single parent syndrome mindset. It took me many, many years. Me and my husband have been together, and it's almost 20 years soon, but I believe it's a little over 18 years, and we would be 16 years married this June in 10 days. And it took me a long time to get out of that mode, to realize that, hey, I have a husband that is very supportive, that is very capable and ready to be the provider for our family, to be the protector of our family, to be the caretaker of our family. Simple things like, I know that as a single parent, if something broke, if the toilet was messed up, if my car needed oil, if whatever, I could do it. I knew how to know how to change my oil. I could check my oil and I'd change it. But I knew that I can go out and check my oil. I knew I can go take the trash out. I knew I could do all these things. But I had to learn that it's okay that my husband supports me. And I had to learn how to come out of that single parent mindset and mode through trusting myself, through being transparent with myself, through being honest with myself, and then doing the same with him. and helping him to understand where I was coming from in the mode that I was in. Understanding that my parenting style, I would have to learn how to mesh our parenting styles together, because I was used to this dictatorship of I just told a child what to do, and it is my way or the highway, as we talked about earlier, that dominance thing. I had to learn to communicate, which is another one: honesty, transparency, trust, communication. Those are the things that are going to get us out of this single parent syndrome. You need that. Communication is the big one. That is huge. That is right up there with trust. Huge. You have to be able to communicate the why. Okay, so we just hit 9:30, guys, and I know we can talk about this forever. Trust me, we can. But I tell you what, keep the conversation going in the comments. I will respond to those. If you found that you are in that place of you're wanting to get involved with a single parent, or you have now got into a relationship as a single parent and you want support with talking through things, please feel free to schedule a session with me. I'm more than happy to be that support that you need, that listening ear, that third party coach for you guys to build that relationship. And also, I don't want you all to forget, Date Night RBA kicks off tomorrow. Our very first mindfulness couples yoga is June the 7th. There are 5 memberships that are still available for free, so you can try it out for a whole month for free. It is an all-inclusive Date Night RBA. Go to datenightrba.net, put in the code New June, just like that, New June, and get your free membership for June. I thank you guys for hanging with me. You can catch me right back here next Tuesday at 9 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, where the subject will be, what's your love style? That's very important when it comes to building a relationship and a marriage. So I thank you guys again for joining me for Sex, Love, and Marriage, our weekly show on Tuesdays at 9 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. Don't forget, check out Date Night RBA. Go to datenightrba.net. It's the first and only dating social club for couples here in the Richmond and surrounding areas. So good night, everybody. I will see you back here next week.